Opportunity to welcome you all. Our chief guest, Your Excellency, the High Commissioner of the United Republic of Tanzania to the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency Major General Paul Simuli Kisesa, Dr. Nanso Zisuzi Mwanga, the Executive Director of the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center at Makerere. My mentor, Professor Ndevesa from Makerere University. The Guild Leadership present, my brother Nsamba from the Guild President of Makerere University. My brother Amanya, the Guild President of Makerere University Business School. My brother Kakai from the NRM Secretariat, the Youth Wing. Colleagues in your respective capacities, our media colleagues, protocol observed. My name is Kisembo Ronex Tendo. I am the group CEO of Africa Mashariki Fest, which is a regional youth organization affiliated to the East African Community Secretariat in Arusha. And it's a pleasure having you all today when we are launching a pilgrimage, a maiden pilgrimage to Butiama, where we'll be commemorating 25 years after the passing of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Similarly, in the month of October, on the 14th, that will be the Nyerere Day, the commemoration of the 25 years after his passing. But still, as proponents of the East African community integration, from the time the EAC was revived in 1999, we are also going to be marking 25 years of the revived East African community. So as you know that 25 years, when we talk of 25 years, we are celebrating a silver jubilee. So we have two celebrations in one, or two commemorations in one. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, and then 25 years of the revived East African community. Allow me to take you through the program. The pilgrimage, as I earlier stated, is an initiative of Africa Mashariki Fest. And we believe that as people, as young people who espouse the legacy and the values of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and other leaders on the African continent, it's important that we go and visit his ancestral home and the resting ground in Butiama, which is found in the Mara region in the United Republic of Tanzania. The theme for this pilgrimage, as you can see on the banner, it is espousing Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's legacy and values, the lessons for Mother Africa. When we go there, ideally this will be a reflective moment when we are in Butiama. Africa is faced with so many challenges as we speak now. We have an integrity crisis across the continent. You hear of corruption in all corners of the continent. As young people, if we want to emulate the leaders, the legacy of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and his comrades, we need to sit down. And we chose to go to his ancestral home, sit down under a tree, reflect, look at the East African community. Let's look at the initial East African community. Why did the founding fathers choose to integrate after attaining independence? Why did they choose to unite? Tanzania would have been on its own. Uganda would have been on its own. The same with Kenya. But these visionary leaders saw that unity was very paramount, so they chose to integrate. And then a few years after the integration, and we saw the fruits of the integration, then our community collapsed. So at this moment, I want to salute His Excellency President Kaguta Museveni, who championed the revival of the East African community. Now, as we community, it provides for a people-centered and a private sector-led integration. Are we seeing this happening? That's the questions. Those are the questions, my young brother, that we need to sit down at the ancestral home of Mwalimu Nyerere, the brain behind the union of our region, and review, will reflect, and then we shall come up with a Butiama Accord. As young people, we shall make our demands clear to the leadership that Mwalimu Nyerere's intentions were these. Are we still on track, or we derailed? So, the pilgrimage is focusing on espousing the values and the legacy of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Pilgrims will have an opportunity to lay a wreath on the grave of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, visit the museum, take a walk around the ancestral home, and also a mass in the Cathedral of Butiama. Because as you are aware, the canonization process for Mwalimu Julius Nyerere to become a saint is ongoing. So we will join other pilgrims in Butiama to pray for the canonization process for Mwalimu Nyerere. The Uganda Airlines to charter one of our Bombardier CRJ 900 aircrafts. So we are chartering one of the 4 Bombardiers on the 14th of October. It will fly pilgrims from Entebbe to Mwanza. Then from Mwanza we shall travel by bus through Serengeti National Park to Butiama. Then in Butiama we shall begin with the mass to pray for the canonization and commemorating 25 years. Then a tour around the ancestral home and other programs. I will share the details in the press release going forward. We have also, as Africa Mashariki Fest, engaged Kira Motors, our own, that produce the Kayola diesel coaches. These are very comfortable buses that come with Wi-Fi, they come with air condition, they have inbuilt toilets. Now, university students, secondary school students, and even the general public who may not afford to fly have an opportunity to travel in these comfortable, brand new Kayola diesel coaches to Butiama via Mutukula border. We are reaching out to Uganda People's Defense Forces, specifically the CDF, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, to provide us with an ambulance and doctors that will escort the students or the pilgrims who will be traveling by road all the way from here up to Butiama and back. Similarly, on the side of security, we are looking at the Inspector General of Police providing us with security and a lead car that will lead us from here all the way to Mutukula. When we cross the border on the Tanzanian side, I can guarantee you I've worked with them. We've held a number of events. Security on the other side will also do the same. At every district, they call it wilaya. So the district police commander from each district receives us and leads us up to the next station. So in Kiswahili they call it kupokezana. So, so we have this CRJ 900, the Bombardier. It carries 67 passengers. Business class and 12, and the rest of the seats are economy class. So the details in the press release, I may not take you into all the details. Right? Economy class is $800. Business class is $1,000. Entebbe, Mwanza, and then the drive through Serengeti National Park to Butiama, the entire pilgrimage package, and back to Mwanza, then fly back to Entebbe. Those who will travel by road via Mutukula border aboard our own Kira Motors Kayola diesel coaches will pay 500,000 shillings per pilgrim. 500,000. This includes meals, camping facility at the Mwalimu Julius Nyerere ancestral home, and the entire tour package. So after this presser, we are going to open registration. We have opened up an account. The account for where Pilgrims will be making payment or their booking is in the name of Butiama Pilgrimage Safaris. Butiama Pilgrimage Safaris. The account number is there on the press release, both Uganda currency and USD. And the bank is United Bank for Africa. In the event that with Chira Motors, our contract with them is for hire of 2 diesel coaches. Now, we are talking about 100 pilgrims. Now, to my brothers from the universities, this will be handled on a first come, first serve basis. Because if a University X can be swift to take all the 100 seats, I've engaged Chira Motors, and we've agreed that in the event that numbers go beyond 100, we have a provision of 2 new buses on standby. So we will have a maximum of 4. But the contract signed with them, in my personal capacity as the Group CEO of Africa Mashariki Fest, I want to express what I would call my dissatisfaction as far as the integration agenda, the process is concerned. As I earlier said, the treaty provides for a people-centered, private sector-led integration. I call upon the leadership at strategic level in all the EAC partner states, because this is our dream, this is our future. In all the speeches of His Excellency the President, if you followed it closely, he's been rallying young people, the Bazukulu, to embrace this dream. As the popular quote goes, that you either integrate or perish. That's what Mwalimu squarely put. If we don't integrate, we perish. So I urge the leadership at strategic level to support and also empower young people to take charge of this integration agenda. When you are as a sportsman now, when we do a race, call it a relay, you run your piece or your set, and then you hand over the mantle to the next runner to complete, because the end goal is to celebrate victory. So youth involvement is still a big challenge on matters regional integration. So I call upon the leadership at strategic level to consider this and to embrace this cause and come out to support us so that we can have a successful maiden pilgrim to go and commemorate the legacy and the values of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, as well as marking 25 years of the revived East African community.
Meet you. Mwambusandebesa is my name, and I'm from East Africa, but in the province of Uganda. Maybe to make one disclaimer, I am not the head of history department at Makerere University. Actually, myself and Susan Mwanga here, we have retired, although we are not tired. So I am not the head of the department, but I'm associated definitely with Makerere until further notice. Thank you, Chisembo, for an Africa Mashariki Fest to organize this trip. I am very happy about it, to commemorate the 25 years of the passing on of our great leader, Mwalimu Nyerere, but also the revival of the East African community. I will just make a few remarks about the Nyerere, the father of the nation. I think in Tanzania you call him the father of the Tanzanian nation. But But I think it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that he's one of the fathers of the nation, of the East African nation. He himself, Mwalimu Nyerere, Dr. Milton Obote, and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, the late. They are all the late. They are founding fathers of the East African nation, or at least that one which is going to be a nation. We are still struggling with nationhood, not only in East Africa, but in our territories. I normally use the metaphor of a computer, that to have a functioning computer, you must first have a software and a hardware. Both of them must be functioning. And the colonialists came here and created a hardware of Uganda, of Tanzania, or Kenya, and we are yet to have a fully functioning software. In some of our regions, especially in East Africa, I think somewhere, somehow, the software is still malfunctioning, because that sense of nationhood is still missing. But much more so, the sense of East Africanness, nationhood, East Africanness is still missing. And commemorating such events like these ones organized by Africa Mashariki, I think makes some contribution towards creating this East Africanness, this software of East Africanness, so that we move with a fully functioning computer. Mr. Chisembo has already hinted on the issue of commemorating Nyerere's death and the legacy of his ideals and values. These are very critical. These are very important, and members of the media, you should assist citizens, should assist us in nation building. If we don't build a nation, we shall not even have development. That is my take. And Nyerere is commemorated because he was a nationalist and an East Africanist. And he created the nation of Tanzania. Of course, it has also its challenges. The ambassador here, the High Commissioner, would testify. But at least they have that sense of nationhood compared to some of our East African partner states. In fact, I witnessed that statement to that effect of creating a nation from Mwalimu Nyerere himself. I don't know where ambassador was at that time when Nyerere was retiring, 1985. Maybe he was still in primary. I was a student at the University of Dar es Salaam, and we were seated around in Nkrumah Quadrangle there, and he did say that Tanzania may have failed economic development, we may have failed in providing economic development, but we have built a nation. That's why he is remembered. That's why his legacy is continuing. That's why the Catholic Church is considering making him a saint. Other ideas like self-reliance, which he even belabored to write about, that if we are not self-reliant, we shall continue being dependent, and once we are dependent, therefore we cannot be an independent states or independent nations. So that's the legacy that you, the media, should help to inculcate in the population in Uganda and in the whole of East Africa. He belabored to talk about freedom as independence. Uhuru as freedom, he championed Pan-Africanism. That is why he was a founding member of the original East African community, the one of 67 to 77. Unfortunately, it broke up, but I'm glad it has been revived. We have to take it seriously, because when people divorce, when they are going to come back together, they must reflect on why they divorced and come together. So I hope we are creating an East African community. As Chisembo has pointed out, if we are not one, if we don't unite, I think we are going to be recognized. And you know what that would mean. People with a sense of nationhood, people with a pride to feel recognized. I think one of the professors at the University of Dar es Salaam and I think late, Professor Baregu Mwesigwa, used to emphasize this one. He had 4 imperatives of East African community. There is economic imperative, cultural imperative, historic imperative, but he emphasized the security imperative. Security in many respects than one. There is existential threat of Africa from the global forces. Whether it is the Russians or the NATO or now the emerging new forces like China, if we are not careful, we are going to be recognized economically, even politically, and even our land is going to be taken away. Unless we are conscious of our independence and conscious that there is an existential threat of Africans. Africans had the misfortune of being the only people in the world that were traded, human beings being traded and losing our dignity. Now, if we don't forge East African integration, East African unity, so that we have concerted efforts, we might lose our dignity again. Or we are already slowly losing that dignity if we don't come together. Mr. Kisembo expresses his disappointment a little bit. I want, as an individual, also to express this disappointment with the whole process of East African community. Because we were supposed, among other objectives of East African community, we were supposed to have a joint negotiation for treaties and agreements with other parties outside the region. Negotiating EPAs, what they call EPAs, I don't know how many of you know them, the media, economic partnership agreements with the EU. But in the process of signing, each country is signing differently. Kenya has already signed. I think Rwanda one time also signed. I think Uganda and Tanzania have been dildaring. So, if we don't have a joint effort in signing international agreements, then we shall sign individually and the East African community will not take place. Because if we have the customs union, supposed to have a common customs union, but you have signed a different agreement with EU, and then somebody signs another different agreement, they call it TIPA with EU or with the USA. I mean, this cannot be integration. But much more so, even if we don't have security of East African community. Recently, we had East African standby force going to DRC. Then all of a sudden, they were chased away by a member of the East African community, and he brought in SADC. I don't know how fight that one has gone. We have very many challenges in the East African region, but at times you find us running alone. Anyway, the emphasis is that we should fight for unity of East Africa, for unity of Africa, if we are not going to undergo another indignity of being colonized and being traded. We are already quietly being humiliated by we Africans dying in the Mediterranean Ocean, going to Europe, this time volunteering to enslave ourselves. So if we don't unite, you know the repercussions for that indignity, that selling ourselves now in the Middle East and other places and being looked down upon. So as young people and as intellectuals, I think we should take up the mantle of uniting East Africa so that we become a strong force in the region. The region becomes a strong force, overcome our underdevelopment, both political and economic, so that we forge ahead with dignity, so that when you are an East African and you introduce yourself as an East African anywhere in the world, you are respected. But at times, the youth, the young people, instead of participating, are participated. There is a difference between participating and being participated. I think in Kiswahili they call it kushirikishwa. You are going to be participated if you sit back and decide to be subjects rather than citizens, so that when our leaders dilda in uniting East African community, we call them to order. Because our leaders themselves have been fighting amongst themselves in East African community. One time they formed the coalition of the willing, others were the coalition of the unwilling. I don't know what. The border between Uganda and Rwanda one time was closed Now between Rwanda and Burundi is closed. I don't know.
Great pleasure as Executive Director of Julius Nyerere Leadership Center to join you at the launch of this historic pilgrimage by Africa's young to the Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's birthplace in Butiama to commemorate 25 years since Mwalimu Nyerere passed. It is indeed a time to reflect on the enduring legacy of his servant leadership and Pan-Africanism as a whole. These and other qualities that are espoused by His Excellency the late Mwalimu Julius Nyerere are the ones that we at the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center espouse and actively use to build Africa Mashariki Fest, for inviting JNLC, that's Julius Nyerere Leadership Center, to be part of this important launch. I am highly optimistic that our partnership in this year's celebration, as well as the journey ahead, will encourage more young people to embody and to revisit the legacy of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Permit me for a few minutes to just tell you a very little bit about the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center. The late Mwalimu Julius Nyerere was a true patriarch and strong advocate of young generation picking up the torch of African freedom from where his generation had left it and being able to carry it forward in order to be able to attain real development. In fact, I think in 1966, he urged universities, the young African universities, to be the pivotal and the focus of encouraging young people to be able to pick up this mantle. The Julius Nyerere Leadership Center was established on the 6th of October 2018 on the initiative of the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, in order to honor the legacy of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. The center is jointly hosted by Makerere University and Uganda Management Institute. But since its inception, the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center has had three fairly ambitious objectives. One, to conduct leadership training for a new crop of emerging generation of African leaders, anchored in the ideals of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, specifically the ideal of servant leadership. The second ambitious objective of JNLC is to foster cross-generational dialogues and conversation on African history, unity, Pan-Africanism, as a way to bridge the generational divide in our understanding of what we mean by unity, what we mean by integration, and so on and so forth. And this we do by having regular chotos at the center. Was to conduct policy leading research, to be able to support national and regional integration and development. To date, JNLC has trained over 1,400 young people in leadership, with an emphasis on servant leadership. Most people say, but everybody is doing leadership, everybody trains leadership. Yes, and there are many centers that do leadership. Ours specifically focuses on the ideals of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere and also on the idea of servant leadership. I am in particular extremely pleased to add that our targeted guild leadership training, from the feedback that we have received from it, it was supported by UNDP last year, has been instrumental in building bridges and promoting dialogue with different administration at the university level. Furthermore, the annual Julius Nyerere Symposium, attended by approximately 500 participants each year for the last 4 years, has tended to focus on the closer regional collaboration and integration in the process of underscoring the benefits of creating a borderless East Africa region. Now, to underline our commitment, or its commitment, to the integration agenda, the JNLC has forged partnerships with different entities and different organizations within Tanzania and even in Kenya itself. It has formed a relationship with the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation in Tanzania, MSTCDC in Arusha, and it has contributed to the creation of the East African Fellowship Program with the East African Secretariat and the Chekaya Chikwete Foundation. We have taken this relationship even a little bit further, the one with the East African Community Secretariat, and enabled us together to be able to, to offer help to host the U-Lead Summit, which brings together young people from across the continent in order to be able to debate, discuss issues around development, resources, and so on and so forth. The center itself, therefore, I believe, serves as an important initiative, not only to Makerere University and Uganda Management Institute, who host it, but society at large, because it is well positioned to groom and equip young leaders with the moral compass for leadership and the willingness to serve not only individual countries, but the region as a whole. We also provide platforms for accomplished intellectuals, scholars, and other African women and men who are accomplished to be able to share, to nurture, to mentor, to challenge, and account to the younger generation. There's a sense that there's a disconnect between the generations. My generation and Professor's generation and the younger generation. And we felt that at the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center, it was important to be able to bridge that divide, to have those dialogues, to have those conversations, that much as the young may have a drive, nonetheless, it is also important to be able to understand where some of these ideals and some of these objectives came from our elders in the past. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's vision for Kiswahili was for it to be a language widely spoken and respected, not only within Tanzania, but also across the African continent and beyond. Aware of this importance, aware of this importance to the East African Integration Project, recently the center has developed, with the support of the School of Languages at Makerere, the basic Kiswahili course, which will be part and parcel of our leadership training curriculum. Ultimately, the JNLC's training goes beyond addressing the skills gap among young people to producing, hopefully, more creative leaders with better grasp of their capacity, potential, and being able to understand the different political influences, especially in a fast-changing geopolitical environment. At this point, let me state the obvious, and I'm about to finish very soon. Let me state the obvious, that the future of Africa is in your hands, the hands of the youth. However, in order to be able to harness the most important aspects of transformative leadership, in particular, it cannot be achieved unless the young are equipped with the necessary skills as leaders that enable them to forge solid partnerships across states, across different divides, in order to be able to lead. In this regard, despite the fact that we at the JNLC have been facing budgetary and financial and funding challenges, we have chosen to continue hosting leadership trainings and cross-generational dialogues, because we believe that these are key to empowering Africa's youth, to honor the legacy of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, and to also realize Africa's liberation agenda. Permit me, Your Excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen, to conclude by once again
of His Excellency President General Kaguta Museveni to allow you first to make this meeting, and also to allow you to go to Butiama. I thank him so much. On behalf of the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, you are welcome in Butiama, Mwitongo village. When you will be there, you will enjoy a lot. The village is not in a town, it is really in a village. So you will enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, Julius Nyerere, famous, known as Mwalimu, and as Professor said, Baba wa Taifa. Now I buy your idea that we have to call him Baba wa Afrika Mashariki, Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Was born on 13th April 1922 at Butiama village. Currently, now is in Mara region. Mwalimu Nyerere started his interest in politics during his primary school at Tabora Government School. That interest grew and was crystallized at Nyerere. By that time, we were calling college, but now is a university, where he was taking his diploma in education, and at Edinburgh University, where he graduated with Masters of Arts in History and Economics. At Makerere College or University, for example, he founded the Tanganyika Welfare Association, which eventually merged with the Tanganyika African Association, which had been formed in Tanganyika in 1929. It is at Edinburgh University that he began to develop his particular vision of connecting socialism with African communal living. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1953, he was elected president of the Tanganyika African Association, an organization that in 1954 transformed to the Tanganyika African National Union, in short, TANU. A campaign to strengthen the party by registering new members was launched, and within a year, TANU was a very powerful political party in Tanganyika. Nyerere activities attracted the attention of the colonial authorities, and he was forced to make a choice between his political activities and his teaching. This was choice between serving the colonial government's interest with an ample salary and serving the interest of the people of Tanganyika without pay. That those days, and how about nowadays? Can you do that? being not selfish and having devoted himself to lead his people to independence, Mwalimu chose to resign from teaching. He then traveled throughout the country speaking to common people and tribal chiefs, trying to garner support for movement towards independence. His oratory skills and integrity helped Nyerere, unlike most other freedom fighters, to achieve the TANU's goal for an independent country without war or bloodshed. The cooperation from British governor by that time was known as Richard Turnbull, was also a factor in the struggle for independence that Tanganyika attained from the British on 9th December 1961. And a year later, elected to be the first president of Tanganyika when he became a republic. Ladies and gentlemen, Nyerere's dedication to unity was a central theme throughout his leadership. He believed that a united people could achieve great things, and he worked hard to foster a sense of national identity and solidarity among the diverse ethnic groups in Tanzania. Nyerere's vision of unity was not limited to his own country, as he was also a staunch supporter of Pan-Africanism and advocated for greater cooperation and solidarity among African nations. Many people referred him as a wise statesman who fought for the unity until the end of his life. Mwalimu managed to build national unity in Tanzania, a country with more than 120 ethnic groups using Kiswahili language. Mwalimu Nyerere was the one who adopted Kiswahili, as he used Kiswahili as a tool to mobilize citizens for the independence struggle. Kiswahili as a lingua franca has continued to develop and cement the bonds that hold the country together. Not only in Tanzania, but also in the region, and more broadly around the world. Kiswahili has become instrumental in connecting the people and created more synergies and interactions as a tool of communication. Kiswahili being an easy language to learn and speak is becoming a key language of communication in Africa, particularly East, Central, and Southern Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the idea of East Africa, the idea of Pan-African unity was one of gradual, whereby he stressed the significance of national building and regional integration before continental unity. To manifest his idea, Mwalimu was willing to delay the independence of Tanganyika in order to enable by then Tanganyika, Uganda, and Kenya achieve their independence together as a single federal state. While he fell short in realizing this vision, he united Tanganyika and Zanzibar to form the United Republic of Tanzania. Shortly after independence of these two countries, this union, initiated by Mwalimu, remains until Nyerere advocated that the independence of Tanganyika was incomplete if other countries in Africa were still under colonial rule. Nyerere said in 1970s, when he was addressing the Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania, that, I quote, "We must stand by your brothers fighting for freedom in South Africa. Their struggle is our struggle, and their victory is our victory." End of quote. It is for this reason that freedom of the whole of Africa was top in his foreign policy agenda. Tanzania, under Mwalimu Nyerere leadership, provided political, material, and moral support to some of the Southern Africa countries until independence and majority rule were achieved for instance, in 1975, Mozambique and Angola and Zimbabwe became free on 1908. In 1990 was Namibia, and finally, in 1994, South Africa became free from the nails of colonialism. Nyerere was one of the leaders who fought of the Southern Africa development, who founding of the Southern African Development Community. He met with other leaders from Southern Africa countries in 1980 to establish the Southern Africa Development Coordination Conference, which later became the Southern African Development Community, SADC. With that spirit, Nyerere joined several other Pan-African leaders to form the Organization of Africa Unity in 1963. From Musa Faki Mahamat, the Africa Union Commissioner chairperson, he said, Nyerere played a key role in the establishment of the Organization of African Unity in 1963, a milestone event in our pursuit of Africa unity. End of the quote. Ladies and gentlemen, Mwalimu Nyerere was a visionary leader who dedicated his life to serving the people of Tanzania and the Africa continent as a whole. He believed in the concept of servant leadership, which emphasized on putting the needs of others before one's own and leading by example. A policy of free education whereby all Tanzanians were able to access education freely. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we Africans, let us strive to emulate his values and principles in our own lives and work to get towards building a more just, equitable, and united Africa. Our ability to overcome obstacles in our path and build a resilient and robust future that is predicted on the values of the African we desire. We Africans do not allow external pressures, I think you understand when I say external pressure, to drive our life as Africans. Do not fight. Let us sit together, work together, and enjoy the fruits of Africa. As we are focusing on the legacy of Mwalimu Nyerere, let his memory and his example lift us up so that our lives and our societies may be lifted up. Let us also execute all that he built by building ourselves with unity and the confidence that with his example before us, we will run and not grow tired. We will walk and not grow weak. As I sum up, I would like to encourage Ugandans and other nations here in Uganda. I heard there is a student from DRC. This great opportunity to join Africa Mashariki Fest to visit Butiama. And let me tell you, for those who will use road, they are going to enjoy. When you get Serengeti National Park, you can debus and take a photo with the animals and shake hands with the lion.
I'm the guild president, Makerere University Business School. It is indeed a pleasure to stand before you all. In the first place, I would really want to thank our dear mentors, Prof, His Excellency the Ambassador, Dr. Suzy, and every person, and then our own host, Dr. Kisembo, for indeed thinking about us as the youth and sparing their precious time to come and share with us about today's topic. A lot has been said by the previous speakers. I will not re-echo all of them, but I believe as students, leaders, as young people who are inside this room, it is our time to take up the mantle of what our forefathers have already established. Wouldn't be here if Dr. Julius, the late, had not done what he did in the past. But we stand here because he left a legacy that we look up to him to emulate what he already established, to see how we can live and have a good stay here in East Africa and in this world. Many people, including our own president, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has always preached the gospel or the message of region integration. And to some of you, or from the experience I have, I've tried to read about the benefits and the process of the integration. You find out that the fruits of integration talk about free trade, free labor movement, and all that. Is something that is so sweet and very good for us to execute. So when we stand here today to arrange the commemoration of 25 years after our beloved father left us here, it's really in order, and I really commend Dr. Kisembo and Africa Mashariki Fest for such an initiative. And I want to tell you that in my own capacity and on behalf of other people whom I believe that believe in me, we pledge our full support and commitment towards such initiatives. I would like to thank Doctor for GNLC. We really want it to also come to MOOBS and other institutions. We also want to share from such a very wonderful initiative. As a student leader, I believe it is our time, the youths especially, because that's the category that I represent. It's our sole mandate to take up what has been established by our fathers. We need to emulate this, and we take it on. It's unless we listen from them, we might fail to see where we are going. Because when you look at what they put in place, when you read these books, you find out that these are people who were so passionate and were so loving when it comes to our region and Africa as a whole. So I believe it's our time to stand together, because if we have no unity, then we cannot go far. As I conclude, I want to thank you, High Commissioner, and I want to tell you that I can't wait to shake hands with the Lions. Members, as I leave this podium, allow me say, Twende Butiama, asante sana.
Lisa B. Nzika, a student leader at Nyerere University, as well as a student of civil engineering. I've really been delighted to talk about a legend. It is so joyful a day to get to know at this right moment we are commemorating someone who passed on 25 years ago. There is leadership in continuity. Let's read this to commemorate 25 years after the passing of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. After the passing, I've recognized the word passing. What are you passing? We are student leaders, I should assume, in this room. What are we passing to the generation to come? We have been told we either build a future or we betray it as youth. As student leaders, let's look at the vision, at the mind of Julius Nyerere. He was a man of principle and intelligence. He's a man that stood on his integrity. What integrity do you have as a leader in this place? I'd love to appreciate this initiative for having brought unto us or to benefit from it. That as well, I would love to advocate for Nyerere University leadership training sessions. As Nyerere University, we are passionate students and we are eager to learn. We are very eager to learn. If you've observed in the space of leadership in Nyerere University,
in my 2 minutes, about this wonderful organization of Twende, Butiama. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere had a wonderful contribution on this continent. But I will zero it down on two main contributions he did for this great country. These things that I've been reading about and I've been taught and I've tried to research about. His support for Kikosi Mwalimu and his support for Fronasa is something that as members of the movement we shall forever cherish, because they led to the revolution that we celebrate today. It is because of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. His support for the Mosh Unity Conference. We all know the contribution that it led to the liberation of this country from the aggression of the late Idi Amin. So celebrating 25 years of his legacy, espousing on Mwalimu Julius Nyerere enduring legacy and the values, lessons from Mother Africa. I think it's a good moment for us to go and feel and touch. Celebrating 25 years of East Africa, to me it is an honor. When the president was addressing the country on Saturday, his first point was about East African unity. And he continues to emphasize that let the young people champion the cause of uniting and ensuring that we have full realization of the East African community. I stand here on behalf of very many others that we are at it. And to me, this is an opportunity that we are now going to touch and feel and engage with the dreamers of this African community. I thank you so much, Dr. Kisembo, for bringing
over the last 25 years. I'd like to suggest that when we come back from Butiama, that we attend this year's annual symposium. This year's annual symposium is exactly that. It is asking about the new agenda. What is the agenda? Our understanding of Pan-Africanism back in the day is very different from your understanding of Pan-Africanism. Yet we're actually saying the same thing. You're wearing a Nigerian dress, you're listening to Nigerian artists, you're doing all sorts of things. It is a form of Pan-Africanism, but we probably look at it from a political point of view and therefore seem not to be talking the same language. So when we come back and we have the annual symposium, one of the panels is going to ask, why do we need to talk about it now? And why do we need to talk about it as a cross-generational question about the agenda that needs to be put out there? Otherwise, I really look forward to being able to, I don't know what...
Basebo ne banyabo amanya nze Dr. Kisembo Ronex Tendo. Basebo amanya nze Dr. Kisembo Ronex Tendo nga nze nkulembera ekibiina ky'abavubuka ekiyitibwa Africa Mashariki Fest ekirina amaka gaakyo amakulu wano mu Uganda wano e Kampala naye nga tulina ebitebe ebirala mu kibuga Nairobi, Dar es Salaam ne Bujumbura. Ekibiina kyaffe kino eky'abavubuka kyatandika mu mwaka 2014 ng'ennaku z'omwezi 8 omwezi ogw'e10 era nga twakigulirawo mu kisaawe e Namboole. Mu budde bwe bumu abajjukira abakulembeze ba East Africa bakuŋŋaanira e Munyonyo okuggulawo gye tuyita standard gauge railway, eggaali y'omukka eyo eva e Mombasa etuuke Kenya esale Busia ejje mu Uganda n'okweyongerayo. Tulina birthday emu. Ekituleese olunaku lwaleero wano ye ey'okulamaga. Okulamaga kuno kujja kubaayo ng'ennaku z'omwezi 14 omwezi ogw'e10 omwaka guno nga tujjukira emyaka 25 bukya muzeeyi waffe taata waffe Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere atuva ku maaso. Mu budde bwe bumu ng'ennaku z'omwezi 3 omwezi ogw'e11 omwaka guno omukago gwa East African Community oba amawanga agali mu buvanjuba bwa East Africa, omukago guno gwali gwasasika mu 1977 naye olw'obukulembeze bwa His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni nga ali wamu ne banne muzeyi omugenzi Al Hassan Mwinyi ne omugenzi Dr. Benjamin Mkapa awamu n'omugenzi President Daniel Arap Moi wa Kenya basse emikono ku ndagaano eyazza obujja kyenandiisa okuzuukiza omukago olw'ebirungi bye tugulabamu. Sendagaano eno yatekebwako emikono nga 3 omwezi ogw'E11 mu 1999. So omwaka guno tugenda kuba tu celebrate nga tukuza emyaka 25 egy'omukago gwa East Africa. Ekibuuzo ekiriwo nze nga Ttendo nammwe abanda beera abampuliza kye twebuuza biki bye tutuuseeko, biki ebituukiddwako, biki ebitusoomooza era tubikwate tutya. Njagala okukozesa omukisa guno okwebaza omukulembeze w'eggwanga lya Uganda President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni olw'obumalirivu n'okwewaayo okulaba nti amawanga ga East Africa gasigala nga gali bumu. Ndi omu ku bantu kati emyaka gigenda mu 2 abali committed abagoberedde ensonga z'omukago nga ndi mu kibuga Arusha nenvayo nenzijano naye okutandika ekibiina kino eky'abavubuka kwali kulungamizibwa okwo. Nzikiriza nti twetaaga omukago ng'ennaku olugendo luno tegese kye tuyise okulamaga pilgrimage lugendereddwamu kugenda kwefumiitiriza ekitutwala e Butiama mu Tanzania bwe buvo bwe bujjajja Mwalimu Julius Nyerere we yazaalibwa era waawummulidde. Tugendayo nga banna East Africa kwefumiitiriza bweba gali ya mukka omukago guno wawe gwaviira ku leerwe era tukomyewo tutya. Yeffe ng'abavubuka involvement yaffe twetabyemu tutya. Olugendo luno olugenda mu maaso ffe tuzanye paati ki so kyekitutwalayo. Ekyokubiri nti bwe tunaba tu celebrating emyaka 25 egy'omukago gwa East Africa era twagala kwebuuza tutuuse ku biruubirirwa ebitusoomooza biri ki era tubuuze abakulembeze tuyambiddwa tutya. Tusuubira okuba ne bamaama 3 abaaliwo ng'omukago gwa East Africa guzaalibwa. Maama Maria Nyerere owe Tanzania, Maama Millie Obote owa Uganda ne Maama Ngina Kenyatta owe Kenya. Awamu ne abakulembeze ab'enjawulo abalala abaliko n'abaawummula tubabuuze batubuulire era tusobole naffe okuvaayo nga tutegedde we tutandikira otwala omukago no mu maaso. Omukulembeze w'eggwanga lino President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni mu njogera ze zonna azze akikkaatiriza nti abavubuka muveeyo mwenyigire mu nsonga z'omukago gwa East Africa. So n'olw'ensonga eyo olugendo luno olugende Butiama lwa kugenda kutuula wansi kubaganya birowoozo kwefumiitiriza na kuvaayo nga tutemye empenda butya bwe tugenda okutandikira we bali okutwala ensonga eno mu maaso kubanga lyessuubiryo kali tuyina kuba tukkiriza nti okwegatta ng'emaanyi. Entambula ey'olugendo luno abalamazi abagenda okugenda e Butiama nga Africa Mashariki Fest nga tukolagana ne ekitongole kyaffe ekyennyonyi ekya Uganda Airlines twasayininze nabo endagaano nga tupangisa ennyonyi emu ku nnyonyi zaffe 4 zi Bombardier CRJ 900. Ennyonyi eno egenda kutwala abalamazi okuva Entebbe mpaka Mwanza, then e Mwanza bajja kuvaawo ne baasi ezaffe eza Kira Motors ze tuyita Kayola diesel coaches. Baasi ezo zijja bavuga okuyita mu game park oba mu ddundiro ly'ebisolo lye bayita Serengeti National Park mpaka e Butiama. Bannayuganda, community y'Abannakenya, Abatanzania, Abakongo, Abasomali, Aberitrea, Abaethiopia abali wano abataasobole kulinnya nnyonyi twakoze endagaano ne Kira Motors nga tubapangisaako baasi 2 empya tuku. Baasi zino zigenda kutwala abaana aba university, abaana aba secondary schools, bannayuganda okuva mu bitongole ebyenjawulo abawulira nti bayina ekyenjawulo kye beetaaga okuyiga mu bulamu bwa Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Baasi zino zigenda kusimbula ku kisaawe Kololo ng'ennaku z'omwezi 12 omwezi ogw'ekkumi, ziyite ku boda yaffe ey'Emutukula ziyingire Tanzania mpaka e Butiama. Tuwandiikidde omuduumizi waffe w'eggye ly'eggwanga General Muhoozi Kainerugaba nga tusaba obuyambi okuva gy'ali okuba tufuna ambulance ne tufunirako eddagala n'abasawo abanaakulembera baasi zino mpaka e Tanzania n'okudda abantu baffe abanagenda okulamaga basobole okuba nti teri kibatuukako. Mu ngeri y'emu tusabye omuduumizi wa poliisi IGP okutuwa security lidika emotoka eggula ekkubo eneweekera baasi zino mpaka Emutukula ku booda bwe zinaasana ne zingira e Tanzania. Enkolagana gye tuba nayo mu bye tuze tutegeke e Tanzania, gavumenti y'e Tanzania ne security yaabwe batuwa obukuumi obutukulembera mpaka bwe tunaatuuka mu maka ga Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Tuguddewo akawunti eno yegenda okusasulwako ssente ez'abo abanatambula ogenda okulamaga nga balinnya ennyonyi oba abanagendera mu baasi. Akawunti eno eri mu mannya aga Butiama Pilgrimage Safaris. Butiama Pilgrimage Safaris ly'erinnya lya akawunti. Akawunti eri mu banka ya UBA, United Bank for Africa, ku branch ya Jinja Road awo ku Parliament. Ebisingako ku bino biri mu gye tuyise press release, ekiwandiiko eri bannamawulire. Tuyinza obutaba nabudde busoma akawunti namba naye nga waliwo akawunti eya $1 n'eya ssente eza Uganda. Abaana aba university secondary schools ne bannayuganda okutwalira awamu abanagenda mu baasi bakusasula $50,000. Ssente ezo ziriko entambula, okusula n'okulya mu lugendo lwonna. $50,000 gwe kyojja okujja nakyo kyokka kyekyokwebikka. Bwe tunaaba tuli e Butiama tugenda funa omukisa ogutula ne bamaama bano abasatu n'abakulembeze abalala. Ekyokubiri tugenda funa omukisa ogulaba documentary eziraga speeches za Mwalimu Nyerere n'okusobola oteeka ebimuli ku ntaana ye n'okulambula museum awamu n'okusaba, kubanga ennaku z'omwezi 14 waliyo okusaba okwa Abatanzania ne Bannafrika bonna abakkiriza mu Mwalimu Nyerere. So mulanga gwange eri Bannayuganda, eri Banna East Africa abali wano ne mu nsi endala okuba nti initiative eno esookedde ddala. Buli ng'ennaku z'omwezi lumu ogw'omukaaga tuba ne okusaba ennamugongo okugendererwamu okusabira Mwalimu Nyerere okufuuka saint omutuukirivu. Tukkiriza nti bwe tunaaba tugenze ne twatendenga maaso eyo kijja kubaako ettafaali lyekigatta, kuba buli mwaka tujja kuba tugenda okulamaga e Butiama. Neyanziza. I want to thank you, Your Excellency. I want to thank you, Dr. Sozi. I want to thank you, Prof, my brother, the Guild leadership, and you, the media fraternity, for showing up and the wonderful presentations that you've made. Your Excellency, I'm a sports person. And this I would request the media to really pay attention to this challenge that I have witnessed as a person. As we speak, in hardly 1 week, Your Excellency, we are going to have the Paris Olympics starting. Every country in Africa and all over the world, they are sending their respective teams to compete in the Paris Olympics. Now, I will come down to East Africa. All the 8 partner states, each has already flagged off, including our own. You saw His Excellency flagging off. Our athletes who are going to Paris for competition. It is our humble request. I have made this attempt, Your Excellency, twice, to call upon the leaders of East Africa that can we field one team to the Olympics? We did this in 2016 when I went to Brazil. I led a delegation of young people from East Africa, and we carried the East African flag. When Eliud Kipchoge, the Kenyan, took a marathon, the defending champion was Ugandan, Stephen Kiprotich. Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya won. When he was addressing the media in the media center, the flag we had behind was for East African community. I called Stephen Simbu, the athlete from Tanzania, Kiprotich, and Kipchoge. We put the ESC flag up. It is very unfortunate that each of these small countries, I don't want to mention countries for diplomatic reasons, but some countries can even field one athlete. And you go there and you say, we are a delegation from country X. If we mean well for the East African community, why don't we begin fielding one team to the Olympics carrying one flag as East Africa? SADC does the same. ECOWAS does the same. Then later, as Mwalimu had put it, we now merge, and later we field one team as Africa. As we know, sports, as Mzee Nelson Mandela put it, is a very good special purpose vehicle to drive an agenda. So it is very important that because of this trip, I will go to Paris to attend the official opening of the Games and then come back because of this pilgrimage. But it is a challenge. In Tokyo, during COVID, we sent a flag of East Africa from here to Tokyo in Japan. When Eliud Kipchoge won the marathon, we had the flag of East Africa flying in Tokyo, much as there were travel restrictions. So we've talked a lot. We need to act. As I conclude, that Professor Ndebesa gave us this quote, which even my young brother talked about, of a generation choosing to pursue what we intend to do, or else we choose to let it go and we perish. So I call upon all of you to mobilize in your respective capacities. The media fraternity. It will be good for you to join us to go and cover the entire trip, all the way to Butiama and back. Those moments in Butiama will be amazing, as His Excellency has put it. So let us team up, mobilize.
I was more or less ambushed, but I had put down some questions. I think, sir, there was concern as to what the youth can do to promote the spirit of East Africanness. Because right now they are mental borders. They are not only physical borders, but also mental borders. How can we address the mental borders so that we think East African? As of now, we are not thinking East Africa, and therefore something must be done. But you are saying, what can be done? We shall go back to our quote. Actually, I think the full quote is that each generation must, out of obscurity, identify its mission and fulfill it. So, the youth, are you waiting for the elders to identify your mission? Have you sat down and reflected collectively to identify your mission? Quite often, I'm afraid, the youth go for other people's missions. I support this one, I support this one, I support this one. Yes, you can support a party or an individual, but with your agenda. I look around and I don't see the agenda of the youth. Have you come up with your agenda, or you are participated and you are pushing other people's agenda, or you are in other people's agenda just running around? Have you collectively sat down, or you are involved in abusing each other on the social media? Why do you have to abuse each other? You can, all parties can have actually a shared agenda, can dialogue and say, you who are in the positions of responsibility, this is our agenda. If you don't buy it, then we shall not go with you. Identify your mission. But you cannot identify a mission unless you stop opportunism. That you participate in public affairs only when you have something to eat, not when you have ideas that guide you, like those ideas of Nyerere. So if you don't participate in public affairs, adhering to certain ideas, you will be swayed in any direction. And then you will say you are participating when you are actually being participated. Where are you anchored? Which idea is guiding your activism? Is it your ideas or it is ideas of others? That you just participate with others like grasshoppers during the dry season. So, so identify your mission out of security and fulfill it so that we become Pan-Africanists. Somebody raised the issue of, I think Pan-Africanists are claiming to be Pan-Africanists because they have also not identified the values that guide them, that lead them, on which to anchor. What is the problem of Africa now? Is it inequality? Is it an equal sharing of resources and power? Or is it what? Is it domination? We are talking about intellectuals. You are intellectuals in your various capacities as students, but also even the media. An intellectual is anybody who is interested in ideas and discussing the ideas and the knowledge. There is somebody who identified two kinds of intellectuals. He was a writer, a Marxist, and I wanted to make a comment in as far as public affairs are concerned. Are you interested in public affairs or in private affairs? Are you interested in serving the public as the institute there does the public affairs, interested in public affairs, but also in serving the public vis-a-vis serving your individual selfish interests? If you are not interested in public affairs as Nyerere was, then you will just dance around to the tunes of others, and the mission of Africa will be diverted and we shall be recognized. Finally, I want to comment on the issue of trade wars. Yes, there are not trade wars only between Uganda and Kenya. There is also trade war between Kenya and Tanzania. Mainly those countries, actually they are the big economies, I think. The biggest economy is Kenya. The next biggest is Tanzania. The next is Uganda. And they are involved in trade wars. At times even there are trade wars between Uganda and Tanzania. Now, those are betraying the spirit of East African community. You signed the Common Market Protocol. Some of you have not read the East African Community Treaty. You don't know what is a common market, what is a customs union, what is a monetary union, what is... Now they had proposed a political federation, now they have gone to political confederation. And the youth have not asked them, why have you left a federation and gone to a confederation which is weak? Have you asked them? Or you are just following what they are telling you? Now we are also going to say, we are pursuing confederation. Why not a federation? We had an organization, but we later had problems of challenges of funding, called Vision East Africa. I was a chairman of the Uganda chapter, and Dr. Butiama, maybe he knows him, also retired from University of Dar es Salaam, and others were involved in this political federation, not confederation. But they are talking about confederation, and we are keeping quiet. We are just following agendas of others. Please, can the youth sit down, and whether in Uganda's case, whether you are in NRM, whether in NUP, whether in FDC, whether in ANT, whether in, which is the other one? UPC and DP, they are still there. Can't you sit together and identify your mission as youth, as a constituency, and promote it rather than abusing each other? Why are you abusing each other? You are just abusing each other, following other people's agendas. You're following the foot, and when during elections, you will start killing each other. Why are you killing each other and then you end up on the street? Who is employed now? We have unemployment. So please, sit down and identify the new African agenda. We are still stuck in the old Pan-Africanism of fighting apartheid. the official episode? Is it still there? Why can't we identify the new challenges of Africa within Africa and abroad? Why are we concentrating on the external challenges, failing to look at the internal challenges? This is not to say that there are no external challenges, but there are also internal challenges. But for you, they tell you they are only external. Africa, inside in our region, there are no problems. No. Sit down and think for yourselves as intellectuals.
First of all, I wanted to appreciate the comment before I get to your question. I'm glad that you have attended Choto. I think that following up from what His Excellency has just said, the conflict or the disconnect between generations is something that seems to be continuously mined by different people. There doesn't need to be a conflict. If the young people have an agenda and they want to learn from those who came before them, there's a possibility of having dialogue and conversation. And that is one of the things that we promote actively at the center, having those cross-generational conversations as a way of, first of all, getting whatever you have on your mind off your mind and being able to put across certain questions and so on and so forth. Coming to the question about that you raised as to, well, what can you do? Because on one hand, your wings are being cut as young people, and on the other, again, the same answer from where I'm standing. Apart from attending our leadership trainings, I think the idea of creating a platform or seeking platforms that bring generations, cross generations, old people like myself, young people like yourself, to actually have a conversation, as opposed to everybody trying to talk above each other, would actually make sense, and it would get rid of the feeling that your wings are being chopped continuously and you not being able to make a point. I think that is something that we can, we can work on as a center and as other spaces where you can actually ensure that young people's voices are heard and they don't then have to shout or scream or run in the streets in order to be able to be heard. The other question was very specific about the training, the leadership training. The leadership training is actually free. It's not, you do not have to be sponsored by government. You need to follow us, of course, to know when these trainings are. We've been having some funding and financial difficulties because our budget was cut by 80%. But except for that, we have been offering these trainings to students for free and without necessarily having to talk to anybody. But outside of students, you can also apply. When you see the call on our website, you're able to apply, and you might find